I make YouTube videos, sometimes, so I tend to use a lot of background footage, to make my videos look more interesting than they actually are. And when I do, I usually just end up downloading footage from YouTube. The problem with YouTube footage is that either you can count the amount of pixels on one hand, or the uploader thought it would be a good idea to convert the clip to 60 FPS. I hear you thinking, why don't you just download the original episode instead? Damn, would you look at that. It's the millionaire who can afford multiple electromechanical data storage devices. Who do you think I am? Bill Gates? This is like my 10th free week trial of Premiere. Anyways, when having to choose between 60 FPS footage and low-res footage with a big ass fucking watermark on it, the answer is obviously very clear. Actually, why do these people put watermarks on their videos? Why put a preventive measure so that others can steal your content when it's not even yours in the first place? I'm no lawyer, but I'm pretty sure reposting unedited clips does not fall under fair use. And no, mentioning you don't own it in the description does not suddenly make it legal. Wait, what was I talking about again? Frame rate? Oh, okay. Over the years, I've become pretty good at spotting the difference between high and low FPS. I own a 144Hz monitor, and when my game drops to 100 FPS, I feel that shit. In my heart. So in theory 60 FPS should be better, but in actuality it doesn't really work out that way. Take this clip from the My Anime List video I made, which I posted on Reddit by the way and got like 2.6k upvotes, proving that I am, in fact, funny. If you look very closely, you can see that the lines aren't straight at all, the writing is all messed up, and in one frame his finger looks like he fell asleep while taking a bath. Actually, I take that back. I'm not funny at all. Unfortunately, this is not just a one-time thing. It happens to basically all of these 60 FPS clips. Recently, I got this video recommended to me called Turning Anime to 60 FPS using AI, which has like 1.5 million views or something ridiculous. And let's just say that I'm not worried about killer AI taking over the world just yet. The way the AI works is that it first takes one frame, compares it to the next frame, and tries to generate a new frame that looks like it would fit in between the two. At its best, it makes things more fluent at the cost of making things a bit more blurry or distorting the image somewhat. But sometimes it just has no clue what to do and starts creating abstract art. Like, what am I even looking at anymore? In this example, the AI doesn't even recognize the cut between the two frames and still tries to fill in the blanks, resulting in what I like to call nightmare fuel kumiko. Truly the rarest of kumikos. The only times the AI actually does a decent job is when the scene has a static background, there is not too much movement, or it's just a relatively simple scene in general, which really makes you wonder what even is the point anymore. I'm also gonna make an educated guess and say that even if the AI gets better over time, no matter if that will be in 1 month, a year, or 5, it will probably still look like shit. One thing you need to understand is that currently anime moves at a speed of 24 frames per second, but that does not mean that it shows 24 different frames per second. It's extremely normal for anime to show the same images for multiple frames at a time, meaning that it's actually closer to 12 or even 6 frames per second. The reason being that at the end of the day, more frames equals more labor and is therefore more expensive to produce. Animators have found a way to resemble the feel of fluidity by making use of things like in-betweening. In-between frames are frames with the sole purpose of making the transition between keyframes more fluent, and as a result, these frames themselves, when taken out of context, have the tendency to look like shit. They are not supposed to be viewed individually, so what will happen when the AI tries to make sense of them? I can see one of two things happening. Number one being that it doesn't really know what it's supposed to do with this third flying leg in the middle of the air, or it just takes these frames that make no sense and turn them into some weirdly smooth looking piece of modern art. Now you may think to yourself, why don't they just make anime 60 FPS in the first place? If they do that, then all these problems would be solved, right? Other than the obvious problems like cost, there's actually another thing that's kind of important but may not be as obvious. In order to truly understand this subject, we have to go back, way back, to a much simpler time. A time long before the ticker-tocker or the chat snaps. Long before you could find an infinite amount of things to do on the internet, we had this now extinct form of entertainment called television. I don't mean to brag, but I attended a single college class once, so I'm pretty much an expert in this field. You see, anime is old, like really old. Old enough that it used to be broadcasted on analog television, which was invented in the year 1492, just after the fall of the West Roman Empire. Anyway, just like the US, Japan used the NTSC standard of analog TV, meaning that Japanese television consists of 525 lines and can show up to 30 frames per second. For comparison, Europe, which uses the PAL standard, can only show up to 25 frames per second, but consisted of a total of 625 lines, trading in frame rate for better image quality. As you can see, the technology just wasn't there yet, and even if animators wanted to make anime in 60 FPS, they just couldn't. But we've come a long way since then. Year after year, month after month, day after day, we continue to improve, invent, discover new untapped potential, and push the boundary of what is and what is not possible. The combined effort of all humans who have ever walked this earth resulted in an exponential growth of our technology. Faster, smaller, more convenient, more efficient, all with one goal in mind: high quality anime titties. With this single goal in mind, humans made their most revolutionary scientific breakthrough yet, and it was called digital television. In 2008, Japan started enforcing the digital TV format known as ISDB-T, which is superior to the old NTSC standard in pretty much every way. Higher quality, better signal strength, but most importantly, it can show up to a whopping 30 FPS. Yikes. Anime won't be 60 FPS anytime soon. Let's just keep it that way, okay? At the end of the day, anime is an art form. An art form that tends to draw in degenerates, but an art form nonetheless. And using AI to enhance anime is like putting some shitty Instagram filter over actual art. Ask yourself this: would you really ruin the Mona Lisa like that?
Let's go!